Somewhere along the way, the world convinced us that being single means being incomplete. But maybe it's just being fully available for yourself for the first time. You wake up, sunlight spills across the floor, and for a second, there's no one to impress, no role to play. Just you, steady, safe, and free to start again. This isn't a story about loneliness. It's about remembering how to live without waiting for permission, about finding joy in your own rhythm and calm in your own company. Peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the art of hearing your own voice again in the crowd. Today we'll walk through 10 quiet lessons that turn solitude into strength, not by building walls, but by opening windows. So if you've been measuring your worth by who stayed or who left, pause that thought. Because sometimes what leaves isn't rejection, it's space being made for you to finally return to yourself. 1. Your company first, then anyone else's. When the chatter fades and the day closes its eyes, who are you left with inside that quiet? Most people rush to fill the silence. Calls, screens, someone to text, as if stillness itself is proof that something's wrong. But peace begins the moment you stop treating your own presence as a waiting room. Recent studies from behavioral psychology show that the mind reacts to solitude almost like it reacts to exercise. At first, there's discomfort, a rush of restlessness, an urge to escape. But after a few minutes of stillness, the brain releases serotonin and oxytocin, the same chemicals linked to calm and connection. In other words, being alone isn't the problem. How we think about being alone is. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul takes the color of its thoughts." Modern neuroscience says nearly the same thing. Our thoughts sculpt neural pathways the way water shapes stone. When you constantly feed your mind with static, you strengthen the circuits of anxiety. When you feed it with a quiet reflection, you strengthen the circuits of stability and focus. You don't have to love solitude right away. Just stop fighting it. Most people say they can't sit alone with their thoughts for 5 minutes, but somehow they can scroll other people's thoughts for 5 hours and call that connection. Make a cup of tea, let the air move around you, and notice how your mind slowly unclenches. We upgrade everything, phones, cars, wardrobes, yet speak to ourselves in the same outdated tone we learned as kids. Maybe peace starts with changing that voice. Talk to yourself kindly, even awkwardly at first. Ask, "What do I need tonight?" and answer it with the same care you'd offer someone you love. Because the day you stop fearing your own company is the day you stop settling for people who only half see you. If you agree your own company is your best company, please hit like and save video this thought. 2. Meet many people without losing yourself. It's easy to forget how many versions of you the world can meet. The one at work who keeps everything running. The friend who always listens. The quiet soul who feels most alive on long walks with no destination. When you're single, you have a chance to meet all of them again, not because you're searching for new people, but because you finally have the space to remember who you are without the crowd chatter. There was a time I filled my days with gatherings I didn't enjoy, just to prove I wasn't alone. Then one weekend, Jonas invited me to a simple backyard dinner. No fancy talk, no loud music, just food, firelight, and people laughing at ordinary things. I didn't need to perform. I realized then, connection doesn't have to be loud to be real. Epictetus once said, "Attach yourself to what is true, let the rest be commentary." When you know what's true for you, you can walk into any room without losing yourself in it. Before you go somewhere new, pause and whisper one small choice. Today, I choose curiosity. Curiosity turns "what do I say" into "what can I learn?" It softens the jaw, widens the eyes, and lets the room introduce itself to you. Not perfection, not approval, just curiosity. That simple mindset can turn small talk into meaning and strangers into mirrors. And if you notice a place where you always leave feeling smaller, don't keep showing up out of habit. You're not a background character in someone else's story. You're the DJ of your own social volume. Turn down the rooms that drown your melody. Meet people fully, love them freely, but carry your own compass quietly in your pocket. Because the right people won't ask you to put it down just to walk beside them. Think of your social life like a balanced portfolio. A few deep bonds, a few light ones, and room for new ideas to grow. Diversity isn't racket, it's perspective. Step in, listen well, and step out before you shrink. And if every conversation feels like a panel interview, congratulations, you've discovered an exit. 3. Time you respect becomes a life you respect. We always say time flies, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just walks away from those who don't notice it. Being single gives you one of life's rare luxuries. You get to decide what your hours mean. No compromises, no borrowed dreams. Singlehood returns the keys to your calendar. Trade obligation hours for oxygen hours. Moments that pay you back in clarity. If your calendar looks like a game of Tetris, maybe it's time to let a few blocks fall. A friend of mine, Mary, once told me she started feeling like her life was on autopilot. Every morning she'd rush from task to task, checking boxes that no longer meant anything to her. One day she decided to change just one thing. She left her phone in another room for the first hour after waking up. At first it felt strange, almost empty, but within a week she realized her mornings had turned quiet and sacred. Coffee tasted better, ideas returned. The day no longer owned her, she owned the day. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." He wasn't blaming anyone. He was reminding us that attention is wealth. The way you spend your morning decides the tone of your entire life. Maybe you don't need a 5 a.m. routine or a perfect planner. Maybe you just need one honest hour that belongs entirely to you. Read, walk, stretch, sit still. Treat that hour like sacred ground. Because how you treat your time is how you teach the world to treat you. Protect the thresholds of your day, the first light, the first bite, the first word you say to yourself. Rituals are rails. Set them once and let them carry you when motivation forgets. Mary told me something that stayed with me. When I stopped racing my mornings, I stopped racing my life. And she was right. Time doesn't disappear. It waits for us to notice it again. So before you close your eyes tonight, ask one question. Did I live today, or did I just manage it? If the answer feels heavy, don't judge it. Just promise yourself that tomorrow you'll give your time back to the person who deserves it most. You. When you're single, every hour is your own. You finally get to decide what your time becomes. 4. Money that buys calm, not noise. Money itself has no voice. It only echoes the person who spends it. Some use it to shout, others use it to build quiet. Elon Musk once said he sold all his houses and now rents a small home near SpaceX. People mocked him, couldn't understand how a billionaire could live in a one-story prefab house. But that decision revealed something most people miss. When you no longer need luxury to feel secure, you finally start owning your freedom instead of your furniture. You'd be amazed how light your soul feels when your sofa stops being a trophy. When you're single, that freedom becomes even clearer. You spend for peace, not performance. No anniversaries to prove, no silent competitions to win. Every choice, from what you eat to where you live, becomes a mirror of what truly matters to you. That's one of the quiet blessings of singlehood. Your money starts serving your values instead of someone else's expectations. Modern psychology calls this the paradox of possession. The more we chase comfort through things, the more those things begin to own us. Our time, our energy, our peace. Yet when we simplify, we reclaim control. It's not about living poor, it's about living precise. The richest people aren't the loudest, they're the least distracted. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." A Stoic doesn't reject success, he simply refuses to worship it. Money is not meant to inflate your ego. It's meant to expand your choices. If what you buy limits your calm, you didn't purchase comfort, you purchased restlessness. Think about it. A man with 10 cars and 10 unpaid emotions is not rich, he's crowded. But a man with one car, clear intentions, and steady sleep, that's wealth in motion. So use your resources like a craftsman uses tools, deliberately, silently, effectively. Let your bank account support your peace, not replace it. Spend less to impress and more to express. If a purchase asks for attention every day, it was too expensive, no matter the price tag. Let money amplify your values, not your volume. Are you spending money for peace or for performance? In one word, what does true wealth look like to you? Because the goal is not to look rich, it's to feel untouchably free. And if you ever wonder what enough looks like, maybe it's that moment when money stops deciding what matters and you start deciding again. 5. Love that does not beg. We grow up surrounded by a single idea that love is something you earn, not something you live. But love isn't a currency, it's a current. It flows through every part of life if you stop trying to own it. When you're single, you get to see love in its wider shapes, not just romance, but the small ways care shows up. The friend who remembers your hard days, the neighbor who waves every morning, the quiet pride in helping someone without being noticed. There's research showing that acts of kindness increase serotonin in both the giver and the receiver. Love literally changes brain chemistry, not the kind from grand gestures, but the kind that repeats quietly until it becomes who you are. Seneca wrote, "Tiagati, if you want to be loved, love. Not perform, not persuade, just love." And that begins with how you treat yourself when no one's watching. Because the person who talks to themselves with patience will naturally talk to the world with grace. You don't need a perfect partner to feel connected. You need to stay open enough to give and receive in small ways. Love for family that softens with time. Love for friends that doesn't measure keeping score. Love for the community that reminds you you're not alone in your effort to be good. Some will sail past your light. That's fine. Lighthouses aren't persuasive, they're dependable. Romantic love may come and go, but a loving spirit, that one stays. And when love does arrive again, you'll recognize it not by its drama, but by its peace, because real love doesn't knock you off balance. Love, in its truest form, is like sunlight. It touches everything, asks for nothing, and still makes things grow. It reminds you that you were standing tall all along. Practice small, repeatable love, a text of gratitude, a warmed plate, an unhurried ear. Love that costs little to perform, costs little to maintain, and somehow grows interest anyway. You've learned to sit with yourself, to step into rooms without losing your center, to buy back your hours, to spend for peace, not performance, and to practice love that doesn't beg. In short, singlehood isn't a pause, it's a place to build. Now let's widen the lens. Happiness, inner supply, freedom in the body that carries it all. 6. Happiness that stands on its own. Most of the world measures success by numbers, income, followers, square footage. But there's a small country in the Himalayas that chose a different metric: Bhutan. Instead of gross domestic product, they measure gross national happiness. While the rest of us compete for growth, they ask, are our people kind? Do they have time for family? Do they live closer to nature? They built policies around peace, not pressure, protecting forests, teaching mindfulness in schools, and reminding the world that wealth means nothing if your heart feels poor. Bhutan isn't a fairy tale. They have struggles like any nation, but their courage lies in refusing to define progress by accumulation. They measure life by balance. The Stoics would have understood that. Epictetus said, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. That's the spirit of Bhutan. Fewer wants, fuller lives. When you're single, you have space to build your own rhythm, to choose joy that doesn't depend on anyone's validation. Maybe happiness was never about chasing intensity. Maybe it's about rhythm, about learning to live at a pace where you can hear your own laughter again. You can create your own version of that, right where you are. Turn down the clamor of competition. Let gratitude set the tone of your mornings. Keep a pocket ledger of contentment. Good bread, working hands, one solved problem. Totals add up where applause cannot reach. Call someone you miss, cook something simple. Watch how quickly ordinary life starts feeling rich again. Contentment is a soft light. It brightens what is already here. Because happiness doesn't arrive when everything is perfect. It blooms when you stop running and finally stand still long enough to feel the ground beneath your feet. Happiness is often a posture before it is a feeling. Stand where your life can see you, by a window, near a tree, over a simple meal, and let it recognize you back. Contentment is a soft light. It brightens what is already here. 7. Your inner supply. What you carry when plans change. Some people break when plans fall apart. Others bend, adjust, and keep moving. Not because life is easy, but because they've built strength inside that no storm can touch. Self-sufficiency isn't about isolation. It's about becoming so rooted that change doesn't uproot you. When you're single, this truth becomes clearer than ever. There's no one else to absorb your storms, no hand to blame, no shoulder to lean on every night. And that's where real strength begins. And on the nights it aches, remember, needing comfort is human. Returning to center is strength. You stop outsourcing your stability. You learn that peace built alone is peace no one can take away. It's a portable shelter, not a display case. When plans tear, you don't. You unzip the shelter and keep moving. There's a story about a mountain climber who trained for years to reach Everest. When a sudden storm made the ascent impossible, the rest of the team cursed their luck. He simply said, "We came here to learn the mountain." The summit was optional. That's the difference between chasing success and carrying purpose. Stoicism calls this inner wealth, the quiet confidence that everything you need to rebuild is already within reach. It's what allows you to adapt when the job ends, when love fades, when plans dissolve. Resilience is like a muscle forged in quiet repetitions. No applause, just consistency. Because the one skill that never loses value is the ability to lead yourself. Do you know someone rebuilding their life right now? Share this message. They need this reminder of their inner supply. Here's a small ritual I use, the 3-line reset. Name what's real. Release what's not yours to fix. Do one kind thing for yourself or someone else. It's simple, but it grounds you fast. Add one more tool, perspective. Most storms are weather, very few are climate. We can't always choose our weather, but we can choose our footing. That's what inner supply means. To carry calm wherever chaos tries to find you. 8. Freedom that no one can give you. Most people think freedom means doing whatever they want, but that's not freedom. That's impulse. Real freedom is doing what's right for you, even when no one understands it. There's a man I once met who left a high-paying job after 20 years. His friends thought he'd lost his mind, but he said something I'll never forget. I wasn't quitting success. I was quitting permission. When you're single, that kind of freedom becomes real. You stop living by someone else's timeline. When to settle, when to compromise, when to become half of something just to feel whole. You start living by your own clock, your own calm. That's not rebellion, it's alignment. Freedom isn't quitting your job to live on a beach. It's being able to delete a message without rewriting it 12 times. Alignment is choosing the map that matches your mountains. It trades explanation for consistency and lets your days rhyme with your values. That's the essence of Stoic freedom. Not the absence of rules, but the presence of choice. To live by your values, not by other people's applause. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. He wasn't talking about control, he was talking about ownership. The ability to lead yourself through any circumstance. Freedom doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes it looks like saying no to an easy comfort or walking away from a room where your spirit feels small. Sometimes it's not what you do, but what you finally stop explaining. When you stop negotiating with your own peace, you become untouchable. And the moment you realize you don't need to be understood to stay true, that's when freedom stops being a dream and becomes a quiet fact of your daily life. Set boundary sentences you can say kindly and keep. That doesn't work for me. I'll think about it. Not now. Freedom sounds ordinary in practice, like a calm no and a clear yes. 9. The body you build to carry the mind. This isn't about appearance, it's about stewardship, caring for the vessel that carries your purpose. We talk a lot about mental strength, but the Stoics knew that clarity of mind begins with the body. Epictetus trained daily, not for vanity, but because discipline in the body trains discipline in thought. I once met a woman who started walking every dawn after a tough divorce. At first, it was just something to fill the empty hours. But within months, she said her thoughts began to clear with every mile. Her friends noticed she spoke softer, laughed more, and no longer felt haunted by what she couldn't change. She didn't find peace in the gym. She built it, step by step outside on the road. Modern science quietly agrees. Movement rewires the brain for focus and calm. But the Stoics didn't need data to prove it. They lived it. Taking care of your body isn't about chasing perfection. It's about creating conditions for your soul to settle clearly. Sleep enough. Eat what fuels you, not what numbs you. Hydrate like it's a promise. Stretch like you're telling tomorrow you'll be there. Care isn't cosmetic, it's architectural. Walk until your thoughts start making sense again. Because the body is not separate from your journey. It's the bridge between chaos and clarity. And every time you choose to strengthen it, you remind your mind that you are still here, still capable, still alive. One gift of being single is the chance to rebuild your body and habits on your own terms. Not to please anyone, but to strengthen the home you live in every day. Yourself. Pick an anchor movement you can do anywhere. 10 slow squats, a wall push, a walk to the corner and back. Let the body lead on days the mind lags. Momentum is a kindness, not a contest. 10. Rediscovering the art of becoming whole. Being single isn't a waiting room before life begins. It is life, in one of its most honest forms. It's the season where you rediscover that peace doesn't arrive through someone's affection, but through your own alignment. It's where you stop searching for halves And remember, you were never broken to begin with. Solitude is an empty space. It's the womb of reinvention. There's an old Japanese practice called kintsugi, repairing cracked pottery with gold so that the fractures become part of its beauty, not a flaw to hide. That's what singlehood does for the soul. It reveals the gold inside the breaks, the lessons, the quiet dignity, the resilience that only solitude can polish. When you're single, you learn to build your days around meaning, not noise. You make peace your baseline, not your reward. And slowly you realize that the person you were waiting for wasn't someone else. It was the version of you who finally learned to stay. And that realization changes everything. You stop auditioning for love and start expressing it. You stop begging life to give you purpose and begin shaping one with your own hands. Each small ritual, cooking for one, walking without reason, fixing something you once ignored, becomes an act of quiet sovereignty. You start to see solitude not as an empty room, but as a workshop where your next self is being built. Some days you craft, some days you sand, some days you just sweep the floor. Progress is the patience to keep showing up for the person you're becoming. What you keep when everyone leaves is who you become when they return. If you're there now, you're not failing, you're forming. Maybe life's greatest partnerships don't start with romance. Maybe they start when you finally become your own ally. The Stoics called it living in accordance with nature, not forcing, not clinging, not pretending, just walking with life, step by step, in truth. Being single gives you that space to rebuild, to breathe, to choose with clarity instead of fear. It's not an empty chapter. It's the foundation for everything that follows. Because when you learn to walk alone with grace, you stop depending on someone else to set your pace. You stop chasing the finish line and start enjoying the road itself. And that's when life quietly begins to unfold. Friends arrive who speak the same calm language. Work begins to align with purpose in love. When it returns, no longer feels like rescue, but recognition. So if you're in that season now, don't rush it, nurture it, because this silence you're standing in, it's not the absence of love. It's the ground where love will grow right when you're ready. Say softly before you sleep, I choose a calm pace. I choose a clear path. I choose a kind voice toward myself. And until that day comes, walk gently with yourself. You're not behind. You're becoming, and the world will meet you whole. If you want more Stoic insights to live purposefully, subscribe, move, or die Stoic. Let's keep building that whole self. To jumpstart your purposeful journey, I recommend checking out my guide, 15 Things You Need to Know to Live a Happy Life in 2026 Next. It's perfect for finding more clarity,